Welcome back to the Throwing Chairs podcast brought to you by the Hoosier Network. I'm Audrey Marr, joined today by Cronin and Thomas Crow. It's been a minute, no doubt. We definitely have a lot to cover today. But first off, how was everyone's holiday? I think it's literally been a month since we were here.
Yeah, it's been a while. It was good. Good to kind of get away for a second. I was at home for the most part. I went skiing. I know that all our Throwing Chairs listeners really want to know that I was skiing, but yeah, it was a good time away.
It was good too. Yeah. Good to see family. Missed you guys, but
did you?
We're back now. I missed you in particular.
Wow.
And Ben. Even though I know Ben's not here, but I miss Ben. So.
A gem.
Yes. Unfortunately. But well, all right, now let's go to the good stuff, I guess. Indiana basketball, 13-5, 4-3 in Big Ten play. Last game I think we were able to talk about here was Nebraska. That resulted in a loss, a couple more obviously following. But looking back to the Cornhuskers, between the stretch from then to today, what have you guys kind of seen from Indiana in this last month of play? Joe, I'll start with you.
Oh, man. It's been weird. Because obviously after that Nebraska game was wrapping up some of the non-con with the Chattanoogas, the Winthrops. And with the Winthrop game, it was, what are they, 1 for 20 from 3-point? And they're like, they get the win, but it's like, what 5%. In the world? And then with Umar Ballo out of that game, didn't start in the Rutgers game, and then Malik Renew goes down. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, maybe this team is starting to figure out when they beat Rutgers. Yes, that was at home, but still, got to play the teams in front of you. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like they took care of business in that game, in a home game like that. And then they head out to Philly, to have a very good 30-ish minutes of play. They were up big against Penn State. It ended up being a lot closer than probably they would have liked it. But it was like, okay, this is trending in the right direction. That's a road win. And at the time, it was a quality win because Penn State, had a solid record at the time. And they've been struggling as of late. But then into USC, start slow. First 10 minutes, they trail by, I think they were down 10 very early. But then figured it out, ended up winning by, I think, double figures. And that right there was like, all right, these guys look like they're here to play. It looks like the talent is starting to be more evident. The results are there. What is it? It was a 5-game win streak, 3 in a row in conference play. I get the caliber of the Big Ten opponents that they were playing. But again, you got to play the teams in front of you. And then they head out to Iowa, and that's when everything just kind of went out the window. Mm-hmm. Everything that was like, hey, that 2 big lineup's not there anymore. It's just Umar Ballo. It was working. Just poof, it was gone. Mm-hmm. Losing by 25. And that was a game of runs where Iowa just got out early. Indiana brought it back, even took the lead, but then they just couldn't maintain once Iowa kind of punched them right back, and it blew out of proportion. And then, of course, the most recent one to Illinois, which there are few words to describe what happened there because, again, it was 10-8 at the first media timeout. It's like, all right, ranked team at Assembly Hall. IU was the underdogs just from a betting standpoint, and whoa. That was bad. Yeah. In every capacity, that was bad. Mm-hmm. From the performance on offense, performance on defense, from the fans, the coaching. We can get into a lot of it. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but it just it reversed all of that momentum. And now it talked about in one of my classes. It's like this feels like a rock bottom for a 13-5 team, by the way. It feels like you can't get much lower than this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate this isn't the Friday, January 10th edition of the Throwing Chairs podcast, but it's the Friday, January 17th edition. Very different podcast than what we would have done a week ago. Even going back to the Providence game, with IU beating USC, they had won 9 of 10. It looked like they were finally kind of, like you said, getting on a roll, figuring it out. 12-3, or actually 13-3 after beating USC. And then the conversation kind of goes, okay, if you can go into Iowa and win a game, and then if you can go go to Assembly Hall and beat Illinois, there's a chance Indiana gets back ranked. And
I think if they beat Iowa, they would have been ranked.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I agree.
I think it would have been very cusp. They probably would have been 26.
And the Illinois win would have sent them over. But now the conversation is very different. The conversation last week would have been, wow, this is weird. Renew's not playing, but the offense might actually be better. And then now the conversation is, this offense isn't good. This defense isn't good. The camaraderie within the team isn't very good. I think we'll get into kind of that aspect later on. But just on the playing side of it, this team can't hit threes. which is really hurting them. In games where they do hit threes, they win. In games like, say, Illinois, when you don't hit threes, IU is not very successful right now. So I think we'll get into kind of the culture aspect of it later in the show, but just for the product that's on the court right now, there's not much positive.
Yeah, no, I think you both hit the nail right on the head. I think it's just really all these last couple of games have just showed utter inconsistency. I think that's the one word you can boil it down to. It's just complete just inconsistency. So, I mean, there's obviously been some good, there's obviously been some bad. You look at those Rutgers games and the USC game, those weren't necessarily good games. I think they just got the better of those other teams. They were probably just at their kind of bad point of the season. Obviously, Rutgers didn't have Dylan Harper. USC wasn't playing their best game at all. But then you see USC, you beat USC, they go on to beat Illinois and Iowa, who you lose 25 points by. It just shows that Indiana does have the clear capability of being a top 25 team, being a premier team. They would have broken top 20 if they were to come out on top of Illinois. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just they're not preparing enough or they're just not ready for the biggest test of their season. But obviously, within this stretch, it's been showing. I think Penn State was probably their best showing of the season. Again, wasn't a great game either. But it's weird that when you're without your leading scorers, when you're playing the best, and especially when Malik Renew went out, I guess that's when they started to play a little bit better. But then I think it's with the Iowa game and the Illinois game is when you needed Malik the most. But obviously, we're going to cover a lot within the rest of the episode. But when you kind of look at the specifics, I'll start with you, Thomas. What is and isn't working right now for Indiana?
Well, that's kind of a tough answer. I'll kind of exclude Iowa and Illinois because in Iowa and Illinois, nothing worked for Indiana. But looking to that 5-win streak that they had prior, that win against Rutgers is a really good win at home. Obviously, knowing that Rutgers' best player was not playing. And then you look at the game at Penn State. Traditionally, under Mike Woodson, this team has not been great on the road. But you go to a road game and beat a Penn State team that gave the number 1 seed in the Big Ten right now, Michigan State, a game last night. Penn State's not a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
Kern's a good player. Baldwin's a good player. What I think was working prior to the 2 losses was the 4-guard, 1 big lineup. I was actually, after the USC game started, kind of a deep dive article into that with film analysis and data analysis of what was working and why wasn't working. A lot of it was the ability to get downhill for the guards. And when you have 2 bigs down low, getting to either side of the rim is tough because there's going to be a rim protector there. But when Miles Rice or Carlisle Galloway can get downhill and don't have to worry about a big on the side they're going to, Balo does a good job of sweeping to the other block on drives. Not only does that allow finishes or getting fouled like Miles Rice has done well this season, it also allows kicking out. Galloway and Rice in the games that Renew hasn't played prior to Iowa and Illinois, they were both averaging almost an assist and a half extra per game. So I think the good of it has been the 4-guard, 4-wing lineup with Balo down low. The bad of it is, what does that kind of look like when Renew comes back? That was another part of this article I was doing was how do you make it work when he's back? You can't not play him. He's your second leading scorer. He's been here for 3 years now. He's a very, very good player. Can't not play him. But when him and Balo are on the floor together, it doesn't work. Not like can't play Balo either. He's your best player. So that was an interesting conundrum. I think that is something that when Renew does come back, Woodson's going to have a tough time making the adjustment.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think to put it simply, I think what is working right now, you talked about it, Oumar Ballo right now, their best player on the floor. What isn't working is putting all of those pieces together around Oumar Ballo. I think it's really just that's how Indiana's used to playing. They're used to playing that kind of 4-round-1 aspect, and it's just now that you have a completely new team, you're just not able to figure out how it all works together. And you have Trey Galloway, who had a very, very poor game against Illinois. I think not the game that he would have hoped for. Did well on the assist end, but he was shooting, I don't know, I want to say I can't even say 2 for 8 or something around that. But it just wasn't all working. So you have those pieces where everybody has a good game in a different time, but when you want to be a top 25 team, you need to have everybody playing on the same page. And right now, it almost looks like everyone's just playing for themselves. And I think that's not what really Indiana basketball is about. That's especially what Anthony Leal and Luke Goody said in that post game press conference against Illinois. Is they were just saying like, we know what it means to wear this jersey on our chest. We're not playing Indiana basketball right now. Anthony Leal called it embarrassing. They need to look in the mirror. I think it's just really, it really is just not working right now overall, and they just need to figure out what does. And at this point, you shouldn't be figuring that out. It should be figured out.
Not to take your turn, Joe, but just to add on to that, at what point does that even matter with them saying that?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, yeah, we have to get things figured out. Okay. Anyone who sees the score of the game can tell you that. But until something actually happens, what's the point of listening to them? I really didn't dislike. I thought Goody actually really did a pretty good job facing the noise in the press conference. He got asked a couple hard questions. I think he answered them.
I think they both did a great job.
Yeah,
honestly,
in a positive way. But the issue with this team, you talk about consistency, right? In your first answer, this team doesn't have consistent strength to them, right? You have a great you have a really bad game, but at least at the end of the day, you had a good press conference. You answered some of the hard questions, and then you go on Twitter, and Dan Dockich is talking to you, and you just have to respond. And
a shocker that he's talking.
Well, of course, but that's what I dislike is if you actually care about improving it, you don't care what Dan Dockich is saying. Why are you going on Twitter and quote tweeting his tweet of, oh, the clown Dockich is talking again? Who cares? That shouldn't be what your concern is. That's kind of my 2 cents on that.
The
I just
rat
wanted to
poison.
get that out.
I think, yeah, exactly. And I think it really is just, it's not just Indiana basketball fans that are frustrated. I think this whole entire team is frustrated. I don't think they can tell what's going wrong within themselves right now. And I think it's just bringing up all these underlying frustrations that they're having within themselves. And I mean, now I guess you do have just this whole week to kind of look forward to Ohio State. But this is also a big game that you have to kind of look forward to if you want to get your second quad one win of the season when you've played 7 games now. So yeah, I don't know. It's just weird to see.
Yeah, as far as looking at like what's been going well, it's hard. Like Umar Ballo for that little stretch after he mysteriously just didn't play, he came up with a fire. And he was averaging like 22 and 12 in a block and a half, and I was like, okay, this guy's ready, and it looked very solid. And again, it's hard to take that 2-game sample size of Iowa and Illinois because it just reversed all. I mean, sure, he had a double-double against Illinois, but Vladislav Ivic was giving him the works on when Balo was trying to defend him. I mean, he was pulling up from deep. He hit like probably a 28-30 foot. That was gross.
Mhm.
That was like, I think we already realized like, okay, this game is well out of reach. But that was like, oh,
Yeah.
that should not be happening. But also with Luke Goody, I think there is a positive because in the 3-game Big Ten winning streak, he was on fire. He was 10 for 15 from downtown. He looked like he completely had his groove, had a great performance on the road at the Palestra. And then he seemed like he was kind of being the leader of this team. But that's kind of where I've mentioned before break. That's kind of the fault is like Luke Goody should not be the main leader of this team. I understand that he's an Indiana guy. Like he's grown up an Indiana fan, gone to Indiana games. This is his first season with the team. He has played 18 games as an Indiana Hoosier. There are plenty of other guys on this roster who are in their 5th year. If you're Trey Galloway, Mackenzie Mbako, I get you're a sophomore, you're in your 2nd year. Malik Renew's hurt, so there's a little bit of leeway with that, but there is such a lack of accountability from the top end players, from the leaders of this team, because a team will go as far as their best player will take them. And if I were to ask you guys, who is the best player on this team? Do you have like a definitive answer of that?
Ballo.
I mean, yeah, I would say Ballo, but
And then with that, is he a leader in any sense?
No,
No.
not at all.
yeah.
There's a lack of accountability, and Miles Rice has been playing all right at times, has some moments, but like that's a guy that needs to kind of take the reins, being the primary point. I don't know. It's you look at some of the outside issues, say what you want. It could just be whatever it is. But if your best player is not able to fire a team up, it's like,
Yeah.
you're going to get performances like they've had in these past 2 games.
I think you bring up a really good point about leadership. I mean, I will say, I think Malik Renew was kind of the clear leader when he was on the court, and he is kind of he's still bringing up that role. I remember, I think it was the Rutgers game. No, it was the USC game. Sorry, when Mackenzie Mbako was not performing well at all. I don't think he was like 0 for 7, I think, in that entire game. And it was that first stretch where I think he went 0 for 4 in just one whole stretch. They went into a media timeout, and Mackenzie Mbako was just he was about to, I don't know, he was just about to flip out. He was just very frustrated. Malik Renew literally gets up. He usually sits on the bench because he can't really get up with his knee, but he stands up, he walks right to Malik Renew, puts his hands on his shoulders, and you can just see him trying to tell him, like, calm down, like, you're fine, and you'll be completely fine. But just completely talking to him for probably like a full 2 minutes until they went into the timeout huddle.
Mhm.
So I think every time that I have been kind of filming the game, if I'm down by the bench, it was Penn State, it was Rutgers, well, he wasn't there for Rutgers, but USC, it's Malik Renew. He just always is the first one to go up and motivate everybody. I think especially the Penn State game, he was specifically talking to Ballo a lot. But yeah, especially with him down, you can't just have your leader be on the bench the entire game. You need someone on the court. And another thing I noticed, actually, in the beginning of the season, it's been Trey Galloway and Miles Rice as the primary captains. They were always the ones going to the whatever in the pregame to talk to the referees. Now it's Trey Galloway, Anthony Lee, and Luke Goody, which I don't know when they changed that or if there's a specific reason as to why they changed that. But yeah, I think if you do look at who needs to kind of be the primary leader, it would be Trey Galloway. You've been with this program for so long. You're in the starting lineup, and you know exactly what it means to play Indiana basketball and what Indiana basketball should look like. But yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody's really stepping up into that role. But I guess we'll move on now, unless anybody has anything else to add to that.
That's
No, I
really
think you
all.
hit it.
I think
Yeah.
nail on the head with that. Dude, it has to be on Trey Galloway.
Yeah.
You've been here. This is year 5. You've
Yeah.
played in what, like 90 games now? I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't have the math. But
We can count.
there are a lot of
obviously count
games
them.
played.
There has been a lot. Definitely been a lot. But talking on Malik Renew, first game of the year, Malik Renew went down with that knee injury against Rutgers. It hasn't been able to return since. And a big thing we've talked about in previous episodes and what we have been talking about in this episode is that what hasn't been working was that 2 big lineup. There was a little bit of success, but there hasn't been a lot of success now with this 4-around-1 lineup. So what do you guys kind of see of what has kind of worked with this lineup with Malik Renew going down, and how can you kind of see it changing when Malik Renew is able to return?
I think there were obviously some positives, and we all got to see that, with the win streak that they were getting on when Renew went down. And I understand the caliber of opponent, all of that. There was good floor spacing. Guys were getting open. The 3 ball was getting knocked down at a more effective rate than before. They were taking more, it seemed like, as well. The thing is with that, this 2-game, I'm not even going to say skid, just disaster that has happened. It has shown a glaring issue that while maybe the 2 big lineup is not a good idea to go out there because it just causes too much clog. That is such an important area of the floor. Malik Renew needs to be on the floor at some point because I was looking and it has been bad in their losses this year. I've taken all 5. They're giving up 40 points per game in the paint and scoring 28 points per game in the paint. That is almost a 12. It is basically a 12-point differential in the painted area, and a couple of those losses, 3 of them included Malik Renew in that lineup, and then also was with the second chance points, the rebounding, the effort. It's like a guy like Umar Ballo that is known to, like, he's a glass cleaner. He's 7 foot 270. Like, that's the guy that should be getting every single board. Sure, he had 14 in the Illinois game, but those 14, a lot of them came in the second half when Illinois was just kind of chucking, trying to score as much as possible because they were already up 30. He was getting out rebounded in a big way in the first half against Illinois, and right now Indiana is they've been outscored on second chance points. They're giving up 17 points per game and second chance points in their 5 losses. That's
Oh.
also very
Wild.
glaring.
That's
That comes
glaring,
down
yeah.
to some of the effort. And I think Malik Renew, that's another guy that can grab 7 boards. And I think
Mhm.
he brings a little bit of a juice to grab some boards. Again, he was a part of those previous losses, but you kind of take the whatever happened in the Bahamas and you throw it out the window. I mean, you see these like vacation tournaments like UConn. They lost to
Yeah.
Dayton,
Mhm.
but now they're rolling in the Big East. So that one you kind of can sweep under the rug a bit. But with most recently with the Iowa, the Illinois, with these Illinois, that was bad. The amount of like just easy offensive rebounds. It wasn't just like
51
they're
to
fighting.
37, right?
Yeah, it was like ball hits the
Yeah.
floor and an Illinois guy just runs and scoops it up.
It could have been right in front of him too. Like it could have been right in front of you, and it somehow ended
Yeah.
up in Illinois' hands.
I know I kind of went away from like Malik Renew itself, but I think he is needed because he adds.
Yeah.
I think he reduces some of those values that I just mentioned in kind of a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of already touched on the two big lineup. The other thing that I wanted to address with the single big lineup, other than the drives and the kicks, is how much easier Ballo's life is down low, and how much easier Renew's life would be as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you only have one big down low, that opens up the entire painted area for moves. When you can run, do running hooks, drop steps to the baseline, go all the way across. You can do anything when there's only one big. When there's two bigs, it shrinks it a little bit. You can really only go about halfway either way. What I think needs to happen, and like I've already said, Woodson has a tough job coming up when Renew gets back. Yes, he's going to be happy that one of his stars is back, but also he's got a tough schematic job. What I think has to happen is it has to become a 3.5 out, 1.5 in offense, where Malik Renew plays kind of that dunker spot in the short corner, where if it's a catch to Ballo, he can still drop step and use the entire lane, but also he has a passing partner if a double comes. And then also to that kind of idea is the driving kick is still there. If if the point guard drives to either of the guy's side, they just double up on the block together and one guy will come to the middle. So you have a guy, you can either shoot, wrap around to one big, or you can kind of dump it to the big in the middle. I think that opens it up a little bit more. It can't be 2 guys on the block. I think it can work with a guy in the block and a guy in the short corner.
I would like to see more off-ball sets. Like
Yeah.
maybe Ballo's setting the high screen for Miles, but let Renew run, get one goodie off a screen, running around. M'Baku, get these guys in motion, because M'Baku can get downhill. If he catches it on the wing off a screen from the corner, that just sets up a different style. It just seems like even now the offense is Miles Rice, wait for the screen from Ballo. If the pick and roll is not there, then uh-oh. Then just panic mode.
Yeah.
And then even in the 2 big lineup, it was, all right, either Renew or Ballo go, and the other one stand on the block and hope that a lane's open. And no, a lane is not open in that. And I get that there has been different examples, but that has just been what it seems like. I just more off-ball sets. Get these big guys. Renew is an athletic big. He's not a true big. That's a forward. He's not really a 5 in a sense. He can play the 5, especially at the Big Ten level. I think he's physical enough, and if he can keep the fouls down as well. But get him moving a little bit, and honestly, a little pick and pop. Give the threat of a 3. He's taken a few.
Mm-hmm.
Keep taking them. I mean, they went 1 for 20 in a game. They had that Dion Waiters. I'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 8, because if I go 0 for 8, that means I stop shooting. Shoot the ball. At some point, it's going to go in, maybe.
Well, they didn't hit a 3 till about 5 minutes left in the Illinois game, but then they made 4 in the last 5 minutes.
Exactly.
So
it just
they can go in.
I get in. They had decent. Goody was getting to his spots.
Yeah.
There were a
They
couple
had
chucks, but
open looks. They had complete open looks. So I don't know. I think you guys both raised really good points there. But what I kind of look at is, I think obviously Malik Renew does play a key role. Will it be leadership? But also on the defensive end. I don't think that Umar Ballo's defensive issues were as glaring as they were when Malik Renew was playing. I think that they have become so so apparent to being right in front of you now that Malik Renew is gone. And I don't know. It's almost like the effort just isn't there. And I think when it was that 2 big lineup, it was really Renew kind of taken the grunt of it. So I think he does need I like your idea of what they need to do. I almost raised a question on if Luke Goody remains in the starting role, but in Mbako's place. Because
Mbako's been really bad.
he's not been himself lately, and it seems like ever since after the Penn State game when he got back, that's kind of when the rut started to hit. But that's the thing. I think they kind of almost play that same role. While Mbako is a little bit more versatile of getting kind of more in the paint, but I think they're both able to kind of shoot the three ball very well when it matters. So I think, but to have Luke Goody in that starting role as the leadership role that he plays, I wonder if that is something that Mike Woodson thinks about a little bit when Malik Renew is somehow available. But now coming off, I know we're getting to the point that you guys wanted to talk about the most.
Before
So
you get into that, Audrey, you and I did a discussion. I think it might have been at Hoosier Hysteria. We talked about concerns and hopes that we had for this team. And one of the concerns that we discussed was Ballo in drop coverage in pick and rolls. He got exposed against Illinois in drop coverage. And I think some of that had to do with Avicic. Is that how you say it? Avicic. Being a good shooter. And so that pop option was there, and it wasn't just a pure drop and then get over to the roll. But I think you're right. That's a great point, that I think Renew is a lot better in that spot. And when you get even further into conference play, playing guys like Avicic, playing guys like Danny Wolf on Michigan who can hit threes, if Ballo's in those positions where he isn't in drop coverage, but he actually has to make a move out to the pop, and he can't protect, he's not quick enough to protect both. He can't, shade a driver and then get there to contest a shooter on a pop. He can't do both. So when they get into those situations against good 3-point shooting centers, Renew has to be the guy handling those.
No, definitely. And I think it's just a question of when it kind of all happens and when we will see this kind of difference with Indiana. But kind of the low point that you mentioned, Joe, in the beginning was coming off of that 25-point loss on the road to Iowa. Indiana obviously came back home, lost to Illinois, also by 25 points. That was honestly, I think, the lowest point that I've seen of Indiana basketball in my 3 years of covering it. I don't think that there was a point of that game than when Indiana was down 60-32 at halftime, or even before that when Illinois made 6 back-to-back three-pointers and Indiana just couldn't do anything. You saw complete just rebounds just not going your way at all. I just think everything kind of went wrong for Indiana. So when you guys look at that game, where did it all go wrong? What didn't work? I think I said it a little bit. It was the offensive rebounds that they completely missed. Defensive rebounds as a whole, everything was missed. Shooting was not working. Seemed like a little bit of effort came out in the second half, but I don't know. It seemed like it all went out the window when they played that first half.
You want to do rock, paper, scissors? Or?
Yeah, sure. We'll do this. Oh, okay.
All right, I'll go. I actually don't want to talk about the basketball of it. We've discussed the basketball of it. The basketball was horrible. They didn't shoot well. They didn't rebound well. But what I want to get into is the toughness and the resiliency. And I'm actually going to use the fight as kind of my metaphor for that. So as everyone knows, Luke Goody gets his 5th foul boxing out of Avicic. It wasn't a dirty play. They kind of scruffled a little bit on the sidelines. Avicic gets in Goody's face when he probably shouldn't have. That seemed like a kind of a weird reaction to me. There wasn't much there.
It's that Eastern European swag.
I guess so. So Miles Rice gets up and pushes Avicic. A little bit of a scuffle ensues. I'm actually walking down to the press conference room, and I'm standing directly behind the sidelines in perfect clear view. And I see the fight happen, and out of my peripheral, I'm not even looking at Ballo. I'm looking at the fight. He is behind the 3-point line. I see him just start moving. I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good.
That's a big dude.
He kind of long jumps over like 3 people and showed how strong he was. He had no leverage, and he pushed the guy all the way down.
Yeah.
So you get to the press conference, right? And a reporter asks, Mike Woodson asks,
an unnamed reporter
asked Mike Woodson, what basically talk about the fight. What was your response? All that. And Woodson kind of says, I understand the guys standing up for each other, but, don't condone fighting, can't do that. Hopefully the league doesn't suspend him, right? And then Goody gets asked a very similar question, which I thought he had a good response to. He talks about how he appreciates his teammates standing up for him. He thinks that brings them closer, but Ballo has to have a little bit more control of his emotions. Goody's in the position where he has to answer that way. He can't come out and say, oh no, F those guys. We have to get in their faces and fight. He can't say that. He's a student athlete. He's trained in a certain way to respond to certain questions. He answered in, I think, a very mature and responsible way.
Yeah.
I hate the way that Woodson answered the question. I think that anyone who has played sports understands that there's going to be some blood in the battle. And when you're getting embarrassed at home to, I'll just leave it at that. You're getting embarrassed at home to a team that you should beat or, have the potential to beat. Emotions are going to run a little bit. And Indiana didn't start the fight. Illinois started the fight. Goody made a clean, legal box out. Illinois starts the fight. Rice gets in the guy's face. He gets back in Rice's face. It would have been, you could have given up on the team if it ended there. But for the first time all season, in my opinion, I have actually seen Indiana have some resiliency. Ballo goes and shows his teammates and shows his coaches, hey, I got your back. If we are going into battle, I'm there with you. I'm on the front lines. And for Woodson to go into the press conference and slash his effort for that, I think it was ridiculous. I think that Woodson, yes, he has a responsibility to not condone those acts, but I think at the end of the day, sometimes a coach has to have a heated press conference, a fiery press conference. Look at Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell says some ridiculous things.
We're comparing like in 4 years. I don't think Mike Woodson has ever had a press conference when he's been like, "We're biting kneecaps."
I understand, not to that level, but look at the coaches in college basketball who their players are on 100% at all times. Guys like Hurley, guys like TJ Ostelberger, guys like Nate Oates with Alabama. Those guys are Bruce Pearl for Auburn. Those players are fighting, and you never have to question their energy, their effort, their aggression on the floor. Basically, what I'm getting at here is I wish Woodson would have just gone in there and said, you know what? We were getting punked, and they tried to punk us at our place. And yeah, should Ballo have maybe not done as much as he did? Sure. But you know what? A battle's a battle. He went in and did it. Whatever the suspension is, it is what it is. But I'm just glad my boys are standing up for each other. That's what I would have much rather have heard from Woodson than, can't do it. Can't do it. Hopefully it doesn't get suspended. I think that is.
Hopefully we see him in the next game.
Yeah. I mean, I get that Woodson probably just wanted to get out of that room as quickly as possible. But you got to expect, like, with these types of questions to happen, especially a game like that. My goodness, that was... one brief comment on that. I do really like the point you're making because one of the IDS writers, Quinn, his article was about that fight, and it was the most fight that IU had in that entire game. And I thought, that's an awesome angle to take because that was true. That first half might have been in the 21 years I've been watching sports, might have been the worst performance I have seen a team have, both from effort, from everything, from just some of it is luck. Is just like, how does that rebound just go? Like a shot from the left wing bounces just directly back. Like the way the ball was bouncing was a little weird, and like Tommy Slavovicic is pulling up from 30 feet. Like, all right, has he done that this season? I'm not really entirely sure. I get that he has the range, but this was like, oh, he's feeling very good. That was one of the worst halves I've ever seen a team play. And I don't think there's any excuse that can be made. And I think it comes back to effort and, like you said, fight. Toughness. They got out-toughed, and they shouldn't be. They're D1 athletes at one of the more marquee names of a basketball program. There should there should never be a question of the fight that is brought to a team. And for 38 minutes of game time or 37 and a half, there was none of that. And then all of a sudden that happens, which I think that was good to happen.
Yeah. Oh,
But it's like,
I agree.
if you're already like
Yeah.
with the fans, with everything that was happening around the stadium, online, everything, you can take that away and be like, like we just got rolled at home. This is horrible. But like, all right, we're together. We're going to be in it together. That's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get punked at home together.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, you had 8 turnovers. You shot the ball poor. It's like, no, we got rolled, but like, we're going to fight. And I think that showed a little bit of a glimpse of that. But how do you carry that? Can you carry any bit of that moving forward? Because there are roots to the issues that we've seen in these past 2 games and really on the losses of the season. This is crazy. This year, there has not been a single game that IU has played that's been within 5 points.
Yeah.
They've lost every game by 16 or more.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this? Is an
And that's
odd
the thing.
year.
Like, I don't think there's been a single game where you look at that loss and you're like, oh, okay. You're not mad about that loss. Like, every loss you walk away from it, and it's like Indiana fans are mad about something.
Yeah.
And
it's just
you have
a deeper
something
pit of despair.
Exactly. You always have something to be like, this is where it went wrong. This is a consistent issue of why it keeps on going wrong. But I don't know. I think you brought up a really good point of that kind of scuffle needed to happen. I think you can kind of tell with how long it took for that press conference to happen. I don't think it's taken that long yet this season for Mike Woodson to walk into the press room.
Well, something that happened is that, I'm gonna blame the Twitter heads and stuff. They're freaking out because Mike Woodson skipped the post game radio show, which I personally do not think that's a big deal at all.
No.
No.
That Archie Miller did that. Tom Crean did that. Tom Allen's done that. I don't know if Sig has done that, but there's a long list of the high-end coaches at IU that have missed the post-game radio show. If there was ever a time to miss that, that game was the time to miss that.
Yeah.
Your team is hot. They didn't. Luke Goody was the only one who shook hands because he's going to see his former coach and be like, hey, no hard feelings. He even mentioned that in the press conference. Again, back to his answer. I think Woodson gave a thumbs up to Underwood, but it's kind of that like both of them had the signal. I was like, we cannot.
Yeah, we're not.
We can't cause any more problems.
Yeah.
Woodson obviously needed to take the time with his team, one, to be like, hey, WTF just happened in the 40 minutes of basketball that was played. And then on top of that, you guys got in a fight.
Yeah.
So
But yeah.
it's just I think the internet makes it so much worse, especially with the Twitter, I guess is the X. Elon Musk, sorry. My bad. Especially with that IU contingent of X users, it's ugly.
Yeah.
It's been ugly. It's kind of always been ugly.
Yeah.
And-
There's like the good moments are like, yeah, but the bad moments are like,
Yeah.
calling for people's heads.
And,
You see so much more from the bad
Negativity.
moments
Yeah.
than you do
Yeah.
the good moments.
and Joe, you continued on with what I was saying, made a great point that the closest and the most chemistry this team has had all season was the huddle that they got together with Woodson right outside the 3-point line after that fight happened.
While they're reviewing for this. That
Yeah.
was so funny.
That took like
when Jeremy had to call like 60, he was like, there are a lot of fouls on this one. Flagrant on this guy. Miles Royce with a flagrant. Ball has been ejected. He's got a flagrant personal foul. And even like, it was like, what in the world?
But what I'm getting at is, yes, you just got embarrassed at home, but you can leave that game and sit in the locker room. That locker room, you as a coach, you don't go in there. You're not yelling and screaming. They don't need that.
That's not the time for that.
No, he's going in there, and at least what I hope that he did was he walked in there and said, "Yeah, we just got embarrassed. That was bad." But you know what? You just heard an entire crowd yelling to fire me, and your boy just tried to get punked by his old team. You know what happens? It's the 15 or 16 of us on the team, the assistant coaches and me. There's about 25 of us against everybody else.
Yep.
We don't have people behind us anymore. We don't have people locking arms with us anymore. We're all we got. So if you want to give up on each other, give up on each other. But we ain't got anybody else to save us anymore. So let's roll.
I think there's a real chance that it could be a wake up call, especially with I think the only reason is because of the fight that happened.
Yes.
Mhm.
I don't think if that doesn't happen, it's like you kind of look at this game and you're like, the train is off the track.
Yep.
And it's
Mhm.
tipping over, going into Lake Monroe actively.
Yeah.
That's a crazy. I don't really know where I was going
It's
with that.
sinking.
Yeah, but that right there, it's just it's weird. It's the weirdest way that sports work. It was like,
Yeah.
that's a continuity moment where you're like, there's a group, there's a team.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that are going into battle. I mean, these are battles, especially with the stretch of games that they have. They got the 2 Purdue games in this stretch. And I imagine that first one is in 15 days. I know that they have games before that to take care of, but that one is going to be like, this next stretch of 2 weeks will be very telling. It's
Yeah.
like, is any sort of fire, because we know the talent is there. We
Mhm.
talked about it every single episode. Like, if you just go down the list of players and you look at M'Baku is a projected lottery pick. Balo is been up in the All-American selection as a big man. Malik Renew is so efficient around the rim. Goody is a sharpshooter. Cannon Carlisle to be like the 6th man. That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
That's a
Mhm.
starter on most teams.
Yeah.
Trey Galloway, a 5th-year senior being your guard. Miles Rice, coming off Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. Like, wicked talent.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the moment where it comes together?
It glues.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you'd think that 5-game winning streak is like, oh, it's coming together.
Yeah.
But like you get this is like
everybody's
yeah.
everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
They're in the
And
corner right now.
What? Yeah,
Backs to the wall.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna?
Use some leverage. You got the wall. Push off the wall.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna lose street cred for this, and people are gonna call me insane. But I actually left that game optimistic.
Mm.
If that fight doesn't happen, I leave that game like, ooh, maybe we should just call the beat as it is. Just leave it where it is. But standing on the floor as that fight's going on, and then the reaction after, and like I said, I didn't like Woodson's response, but you made the point that he never makes responses like that. It is what it is. It gave me hope for the rest of the season.
I will
Yeah.
say, like, kind of like backs against the wall.
Yeah.
Now the whole nation has there was a big spotlight on this game.
And you're written off now.
Yeah, national writers, John Rothstein was calling them out, Goodman, all the big ones were like, "Hey guys, this just happened," to all the casual college basketball fans that like to be in the know, who might not have watched this game. They were made aware. They were made aware of the fight. They were made aware of everything. Got a nice date in Columbus on Friday evening. I mean, there it is. I think that game right there is the season.
It's the
That's
most
the
important
season.
game of the season.
That is.
It
I
is.
mean,
If you
obviously,
go
it's the
out
most
and
important
get-
because it's the next one. But it's like, if there was one that's like, you can put it back together.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
You either get punked or go punk them.
no, I mean,
And it's simple as that. In your season, maybe we're overestimating a little bit, but I think your season rides on it.
I mean, yeah,
do too,
especially
yeah.
with I mean, the morale. Like, if they go out and lay another stinker, lose by 25, how much more fight does this team have?
None.
That's 3 in a row. Another road game. You're not back at home until next Sunday, which is like a noon tip. And if I were a betting man, there would probably be like 15 people at Assembly Hall, which would just be the IU basketball players and Maryland. I don't think many fans would be there. So at that, like, it's just this. I think this Ohio State game is going to be so important when we look back at it, because I mean, we all have ears, we all have eyes. We saw what the fans were saying and doing against Illinois, and I think the players heard that, and I think Woodson heard that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it continues this downward trajectory, I think a lot of people are pretty much aware of what is to come.
There will be implications.
There will be
Yeah.
implications. But if they can right the ship, like somehow, like, then they right the ship. I don't know. We can move
I'm
on.
good.
We kind of
I'm
we got
good.
it out.
Let's
We got
go.
it out.
I think, but kind of going back to like what was said in that locker room, the one thing that Mike Woodson said in that press conference was, "Don't throw in the towel." That's what he said. He said to his players in the locker room, "Don't throw in the towel. We have a long season." While that is maybe frustrating for some people to hear, he's not wrong. You have a very long season ahead of you. you have to kind of look at this as, what are you even doing? I think even Anthony Leal said that in his press conference. So, I mean, the last time Indiana was at Ohio State, talking about Anthony Leal, he hit the 3-point buzzer beater. So, I think, yeah, the season does right on this game. So let's look ahead a little bit to this game. Obviously, still eight quad one games ahead. Next up, Ohio State in Columbus. It's clear that Indiana has its struggles on the road, but what do the Hoosiers need to do to succeed tonight?
I mean, like, we can. I don't really want to go much into like game talk because I think with everything we've talked about that's gone wrong, like we know like Balo needs to play well, rebounding, Goody needs to get hot, limit the turnovers, things like that. When I look at a team like Ohio State that's 10-7 with a quad one opportunity, they're 2-4 in the Big Ten right now, off a 2-game losing streak. They went to overtime against Minnesota. I know they had Oregon on the ropes, had a chance to beat them, and I know they did beat Kentucky back in December. This is a winnable game. They've played a lot of close games. Ohio State will not get blown out, I don't think. They lost by 7 to Michigan State. They lost by 2 to Oregon, and they lost by 2 to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They are a quality team. Their losses are, I guess, if you could say, quality losses. This is a winnable game for Indiana if they can, like Thomas and I have been saying, if they can find that just immediate spark.
Yeah. I think this is a game that could easily go either way. I mean, you see how Ohio State's played, leave it within 2 against number 24 Wisconsin, leave it within 2 with it against Oregon, number 15 Oregon. Like, this is a game that can easily go the wrong way. So it just depends on how they did handle it this week. And I think the semi-silence, I'll say semi because Luke Goody was not silent, but everybody else has been pitch silent. I don't think you've heard anything from any of the other players. So you can only imagine that they're literally just in the gym these last couple of days, maybe not even going to classes. But yeah, I think this game is a must win. You say that about pretty much all of the last games that they've played and all of the games that they have ahead. But this kind of maybe raises the hopes a little bit because right now there's no hope wherever you look at it. Indiana fans don't have any hope. It's a primetime game. You have to wonder how many Indiana fans will actually be watching. It might all be Ohio State fans and even people that aren't even Ohio State or Indiana fans watching this game.
Well, the thing is, in Columbus, I actually do not think there will be many people there because Ohio State is prepping for Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Monday, yeah.
For the inauguration. Actually, no, the national championship. Sorry, got the two mixed up. But when I look at Ohio State basketball, again, they're 2-4 in the conference. It's kind of a must-win for them because of the way that the Big Ten tournament works. Indiana's not really, like, they're still, like, in the mix, and we know that the season's not completely, Audrey's completely lost it. I catch you off guard a little bit.
No, the national championship is just really exciting. So
Will Howard has really got a future.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I think like Ohio State's kind of, in a way, I know there's so much season left, but they're in a sense like kind of playing for their Big Ten life because if they fall to 2-5, now you're getting in that dangerous territory where you're nearing that bottom 3. And it's like you don't want to be, especially in this new format, you don't want to be one of the first teams to not make the Big Ten tournament.
They're on
bad.
the cusp. Right now, they're on the cusp.
They're on the cusp.
They need a couple more.
They would still be fine if they lost because like Minnesota and Washington are like comically bad.
But then you look at the rest of the season. You have
but there's still
twice.
there's so much season.
I don't like. You need to win this game. I don't think. I think if they lose this game, I don't know.
Ohio State might be in a bit of the.
Yeah,
a bit of a
got kind of a rough schedule.
I need to
like this
sit
game
out for a second.
This game is incredibly telling. So if you lose this game, I don't think you start preparing for the Big Ten tournament. Because I think you look at the rest of the schedule, and I mean, let's see, Maryland. Yeah, I think they win that at home.
I was more saying Ohio State because they're 2-4.
But that's the thing. I think you see how they've kept it so close, and they're back at home. And what are they? They're coming off of a loss, right?
Yeah, they've lost back to back.
Yeah,
3 out of 4.
Now you're coming back home. Were those last 2 on the road?
Wisconsin was on the
schedule.
road. Oregon was at home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still, like exactly, you're coming back at home. You want to at least get a win at home. And I think this is a game where Ohio State will probably play some of its best basketball because they're looking to get back into the win column. Same with Indiana.
And there's
but-
just so much juice at that
and there's-
campus right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like-
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. You look ahead. Maybe Northwestern, you can pull that one out on the road. Maryland, I think you can do that. But then everything else after that, I don't know. I don't know what you can look at. From
It's
the rest
so
of that
hard to like
schedule.
make any predictions right now because
Yeah,
we haven't seen a consistent brand. It's either
Yeah.
like they go and they beat the Penn States, the USC's, but they've lost by 25, 25, and 17 in the Big Ten.
well, looking at Ohio State too, they're kind of similar. Like
Mhm.
a 20-point destruction of Kentucky, but then they lost to Auburn by almost 30.
That is
They-
okay. Auburn is the best team in the country. Like
well,
to
what-
be
okay,
fair,
but what I'm getting at is lost to Michigan State by 7, barely beat Minnesota, but
They
yeah,
lost-
They
they
kept
got
it close with
punked by
Oregon
Maryland.
and Wisconsin.
they lost to 24 by Maryland. I get that was in December, but like that's
But also,
bad.
I mean, Maryland's a much better team this year compared to
A
years
24-point
past.
loss.
But still, yeah, that's crazy. But I mean, you have to give Maryland credit. They're playing a lot better
Yep.
this year.
I will.
Um,
Ohio State has had a weird season, but they've played, especially like this last 4. I get they're 1-3, but their average margin of loss is like 3.5 points
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
in those 3 games that they've lost.
Yeah.
I don't like trying to do the math here. Yeah, like 3.6
There you
because
go.
they've lost
It's a
by
good thing we're
they've
sports
lo-
media
yeah.
majors.
Exactly.
And then
Exactly.
they like, but it's all been close games. So they had a double overtime win in Minneapolis to an 0-6 Big Ten team. All right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
we're running a little bit out of time. So there's obviously a lot of unanswered questions when you look at this game. So I think
Audrey, can I make one more point?
Go
just,
ahead.
just real quick.
no,
real
go
quick.
go.
Joe, you brought up a great point. Both of you. I love listening to you guys talk basketball because it makes me think about different things I wouldn't have thought about before. But you said that IU had one of the worst halves you've ever seen in your years of watching sports, right?
Yeah.
At least they didn't fumble the opening kickoff. You're good.
Okay. All right. Wait.
No, I go
Here,
ahead. Audrey. That's all
show
I'm gonna
my this. That's the hit. That's the hit. That is textbook helmet to helmet contact.
That was
and then
targeting.
The ball
That
was,
was
in
targeting.
Keyshawn Nixon's arm. Oh my!
That was targeted.
I'm done.
Okay, you know what? Back to basketball. We cannot talk about the Packers because we will be here for another 2 hours. So we are not doing this right now. Let's look ahead. Ohio State tonight. Let's go with score predictions. Thomas, we'll go with you because you're the least calm right now.
I'll go in. I'm
And
gonna
game
get.
MVP. Game MVP. Sorry.
I'm gonna get my hopes up one more time. They burned me a couple times in the past. Indiana has, but I'm gonna get my hopes up. Like we talked about, they're gonna have the fight. Ohio State's a little vulnerable. I think Indiana wins this one. I think it stays in the 70s. I'll call it 76-70 Indiana. And I'll go the team's fight as the MVP.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
I think they come out and go hard.
I'm gonna get a little crazy here. I think there's too much noise happening in Columbus right now, and that basketball team kind of doesn't know that they're gonna play a basketball game on Friday. I think Indiana goes and wins by like 15.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be like 73 to like. I think they hold the Buckeyes to like 58 points, and I won't go like a player MVP. I think it's just gonna be like,
Yeah.
they're ready. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I also think Ohio State, there is a lot happening.
Yeah.
I understand that.
point.
I understand that the thing happening is not in Columbus, but like that place has probably been juiced for the past 7 days.
Yeah.
And I imagine those basketball players are having just as much fun as the rest of the student body.
Mhm.
So that I could be wrong. I like, if I need to bite my tongue, I will.
Yeah. No, I think this is the first game this season that I am like genuinely completely unsure. I don't know how this one's going to go. I could see it going either way. I don't know. You know what? I think Indiana will kind of have a much better performance, but I think it's going to be really close. I can see it potentially going to overtime. Um, but overall, I won't guess overtime. I'm going to go with 88-86 Indiana. I think it'll be a high scoring
Cool.
game. And I might as well, I mean, MVP, I think Umar Bala bounces back, and I think they're gonna kind of see how that lineup exactly works, and I think it'll show. I think it'll be a good game for Indiana, and maybe they'll be giving some hope to Hoosier fans.
Because our next episode is going to be like probably next week. What's that? What's our natty picks?
Natty picks.
Notre Dame. I'm staying with what we did in there.
Yes, there we
No,
go.
I'm
But-
going Notre Dame.
I think
Yeah.
low scoring. Notre Dame will win 2017.
You know,
Wonder where you got that score from.
with all three
It's
of us
really-
picking Indiana, can we just like already title our next episode? Oh, they burned us again.
We were wrong.
We were
Well,
wrong.
okay, before the Nebraska game, we did pick Freddie Hoiberg to come out rolling.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, we're done. All right, sounds good. So that'll do it for this week's episode of Throwing Chairs. Heading back on the road to face Ohio State tonight at Value City Arena. Hoping to get back in the win column. We'll have all of your coverage here at the Hoosier Network, so make sure to stay tuned, and we will see you next week.